you, Ani. And for the rest, Sego, it's gonna go. I'm calling you from my homeland in Akwesasne. And I understand we have a great number today. And as it always has been historically, when our people get together, that they appoint one person who says a greeting to Mother Earth, a greeting to all of creation, and a greeting to the Creator. And so I would start in my own language along those lines and give a fast translation, and then we can start our meeting. Thank you. Tono ehni gane garun kanu kwats. Ehni no junk na de go not do what's got. Tono when you get out. Tony no kaya eto na down hike. Gadi ne gaidi ni gawaragi ni yoni. Degini de gara paraska ti sot. Aska nechi do wachia. Tano ne oni ojisono kwason do what's got. Asotane kanwa. Negadi Agagweni, Agwego, Wagarod, Wanigon. The Chinwarato, Agwego. Neziga, Tonunda, Diana Haki, Unayawan, Skana Agahak, Neji the one ugly, Chihunjat. Negadi, Ehno, Ehniga Wanage. Wagichin Warato, Agwego, Neji was the last 3 Haki. Ne Sego, you don't hike Agwego, what's cactus. No, then on there. Totskawa, next way of this. Togadi no Yagaho, they don't have to do what's got. Did you want to hold next way of this? I'll go with this and go out. Now done there. I'll go with Scana, I don't want to do you. I know there you teach to go. I'll go on name with Dagoni. Oh, now, yeah, taking what I do. It's just to go. I don't know next way of this. Tono, go on. I'm going to not soon. I will not do what's there. Oh, now, yeah, I will go scone on, don't do you. Jin, what you got, Mike, Jim Jot. So, we got it, nay. If you got one again, what got to do go, nay, what's going to on? Eh, nice to have is on you go. Today, we all give thanks for this day as we walk the land on a new day. We give thanks to the land, to the water, to the air. We give thanks to the animal life. We give thanks to the bird life. We give thanks to the 4 winds, our grandfathers, the thunderers, the 2 moons, our grandmother moon and our elder brother sun. We give thanks to the stars and beyond, to the land of the Creator. Every single one, individually, we give thanks and acknowledge the life force. And as we were taught by our ancestors, there were sounds of thanksgiving. There were medicines on the land. And from time to time, we were reminded how sacred the life we carry is for our families. And so we thank the Creator for the health of our families, our communities. Thank the Creator for the nations throughout the land. It gives us peace of mind to know as we start our day that we acknowledge all of creation, all that is living on the land, who are all our brothers and sisters as we are all related. And so we give thanks for this day. We give thanks for everyone for their health and peace of mind. And so it is great hope that we hope everyone is in the peace of mind as we open today's meeting. And I turn it now back over to the chairperson. I extend my greetings to everyone so that we may clear our thoughts and be united in our thoughts on what we might have for improvement of all our nations and strengthen our minds and bodies for this day. Yawagoa,
and under the Galo. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Paulette Tremblay, who's our CEO and president for First Nations Education Administrators Association. Paulette?
I thank you very much. I want to acknowledge our knowledge keeper, Mike Mitchell, and thank him for his words of wisdom and for his words from the Creator and being from the community where we house our office, the First Nations Education Administrators Association, Nyawagoa. I am so excited to be here today. I think whenever we get the words of wisdom in the language and from our wise ones, our knowledge keepers and our elders, my heart speeds up. I listen and care with passion because they are connecting us to who we are and what we do and where we're going. They are helping us find a path forward as we move towards First Nations control of First Nations education in our First Nations communities and on reserve and off reserve, because we know that many of our communities, for example, in the north, are land claims, in BC are land claims, and are not part of our traditional treaties and our numbered treaties from across Canada when the government, Indian Affairs, stopped dealing with us through the British North American Act and put us as wards of the state. So we know this. We're still reeling from that pain, and we're reeling from the pain of the schools, schools that were set up to take away our languages, to take away our children, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the 94 calls to action. And so finding our way back to who we are, our self-identity, our self-governance, our resilience, and a passion about who are we? Who am I? Who do I belong to? And we have to go back to the local community and the over 600 communities that have been set up by the Indian Affairs, now Indigenous Services Canada, and the Crown Indigenous Relations with Canada. So CERNAC. So with these two, now we have two departments to go to for different purposes. But today isn't about us. Today is about focusing on our traditions and our place. We do that at First Nations Education Administrators Association, FNEAA. Our vision, mission, and value statement all return us to our traditions, our cultures, our ceremonies, who we are. And that's why we hold these town halls. And that's why we are focused so much on trying to find our way back. And it's our knowledge keepers that do that for us. We are trying to practice that in a traditional manner at FNEAA. We work hard at it, and Mike Mitchell helps guide us in all that we do. And he's wondrous because he's lived it, he's breathed it, and he's doing it. So today, Albert, I'm so excited to meet you, sir. I am going to listen with ears wide open, and I know that we're giving away the prizes to our youth storytellers, who we celebrated last week, and they were magnificent. They were magnificent. They were passionate. They were full of joy and energy, and they made me shake. They made me so glad to be who I am and what I'm doing. It made me very proud to see them stand up and share who they are and are resilient and speaking the language. They're going to help guide us and lead us with you. So our Storyteller National Awards. So here we go. Our first choice winner, and these are voted on by all of the participants. That's where they come from. The participants who found some of these items, the cultural items that spoke to them and to their hearts. And so the first choice winner from their colleagues was Cortana Lerat Villebrun, grade 3 in Cowessess Community Education Center. Congratulations, Cortana. We love the turtle, and truth is important. Chippewa's second choice winner was Hannah Miller from grade 6 from the Kikendasugamic Elementary School at Chippewas of Nawash First Nation, Ontario. Look at these beautiful earrings. And I apologize if I don't get the pronunciation right, but I will try. Next slide, please. Our third choice winner was Tiana Gibson, grade 5. Sitsnali School, Akwesasne, Quebec. It's our beadwork again. Thank you, thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. So those are our winners. I'm so excited. So big round of applause for all of those who handed in, and shared the gifts that they have, and we're so proud of. We're so proud of you. Anyway.
So we'll be sending out a press release with the 3 national winners, but also the regional winners will be in our press release. And thank you very much for that. So it's my pleasure, as Dr. Tremblay said, to welcome Elder Dr. Albert Marshall from Eskasoni, Nova Scotia, in the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq. And he coined the English phrase, him and his wife, two-eyed seeing, many years ago, which is a guiding principle that can be found in Mi'kmaq language, and it's reflected in that in the language. So I'm not going to hold you back anymore. Albert, we'll turn it over to you.
Wala alin paksima. Kwe. Hamiskara meliwi waldas. Waldas idan telia hidel bio. Kwe ulina ula mawio mielia. Kuruswa aniyewe mani waji alu kibeno. Era wakti mai meliwi. La kuruswa an. Mainari go inaru wan kikino udamasi. Today, I'd like to express my deepest appreciation. We use the word "gwe" because when that word is used, I announce myself, I'm coming here as a friend. I'm coming here to learn from you. And I thank you very much for welcoming me in your circle. Again, greetings from the East. Again, my name is Albert Marshall. I am from the Moose clan, and I am from Mi'kmaq, but I do reside in a community called Eskik-Okanawagi here in Keynote, Nova Scotia. Today, I'm going to share with you the concept that's not just inherent to Mi'kmaq, but I truly and honestly believe it's inherent to every one of our brothers and sisters across this turtle island, in which we always looked at everything from our Aboriginal lens, and to seek other perspectives, whether those perspectives come from the land or from others, or from other people, to continuously try to enhance not just what we are saying, but what we are understanding. Because I think daily basis, we are constantly reminded that we're not alone, and that would it be much more expedient then to truly fulfill your inherent responsibilities is to constantly seek other perspectives to enhance what your perspectives are, so the task that will be before you will be done according to the laws of nature. So Etuaptmumk is a is an action word for Tuai, which translates, I look at everything, I see everything from my Aboriginal lens. And the third part of that is since Etuaptmumk has to be action-oriented. Therefore, every other perspectives or knowledges that we are seeking has to be action-oriented, because that word action-oriented does not mean, though, that you're actually questioning the integrity of an action or a phrase, but rather, how can I, a Mi'kmaq man, take that concept and integrate it into my perspective. Not only to be better grounded, but better to understand not only what my purposes are, but the task that is before me would be much more effective, because we believe the more perspectives we apply, more perspectives we use, it gives us a better opportunity then to meet the challenges, whatever those challenges may be. So in my humble opinion, Tuai then has to be a fundamental principle as to how we go through life. Because this wonderful world of ours is so complex that not only we'll need our own perspectives, but also perspectives of others, because in our teachings, each and every one of us have been given certain gifts. And to seek those gifts from others, so that you can that you yourself could be better understanding, better reflective of how and why these things have to be done in a certain way, of ensuring that the task that you are undertaking, you will exercise your inherent responsibilities of ensuring that this action that I am going to be taking has to be always in harmony with nature. And since I am a human being, and I'm subjected to mistakes, and I have been given a cognitive mind, and to use that cognitive mind to mitigate and to restore the damage or the harm that I have created. And with those wonderful teachings from our people, I believe, has somehow managed for our ancestors for generations back to always practice of ensuring that they will never, under any circumstances, compromise the ecological integrity of the area. And now we also have to factor the cleansing capacity of the system, which I believe at this juncture, it has led me to believe that because of our indiscriminately harming our Mother Earth, I honestly and truly believe we are reaching the point of no return. Unless there is some great effort of some form of a transformation in which we have to agree that it could no longer be business as usual, that there has to be some changes made, because here we are suffering because we're so overly concerned with our future generations as to not only the deficit that we believe in them, but the opportunities will not be there for them. Not just how they will go about sustaining themselves, healing themselves, and learning from our Mother Earth. So these are the things I believe that should be foremost included or integrated into the education system. Education system is essential, yes. The current education system will give people an ability and a knowledge so that they can sustain themselves. But what about helping the person to be a complete person, complete human being, and allow that person, or allow that group to continuously be so mindful and committed that every action that they will take in the future will always be in harmony with nature. And that hopefully the system would be as such at that point that any harm that's going to be done to our Mother Earth, there'll always be a concerted effort of mitigating and restoring the damage that's been done. So there's no question in my mind that all these things could be possible. And I'm very elated to the fact that today we have such a wide and a broad audiences. Because the more we share, and the more we share of our stories, the stories that are derived from our ancestors, and to use those lessons learned, how not just to coexist, but also coexist in harmony, not just with our fellow human beings, but to coexist in harmony and in balance with the rest of our relatives, in which we solely depend upon them, especially the main sources, of course, are air, water, and soil. All these factors then, I believe, should, in my humble opinion, should be part and parcel of navigating our youth's knowledges, not just to be allowed to continuously be colonized, to be something in which they could never understand who that would be. But in fact, the system has not made any attempt to date, in my understanding, of including those what are essential of empowering and building up an individual so that they could be the best person, it could be the best person that they could ever be. These are the things I believe are possible if and when we can all agree and come together and create this one profound word or concept that will lead us. There's no question in my mind that the issues before us are so complex that we have allowed so much time to go by that it seems impossible. Where do we start? Well, I believe if we can all agree on certain objectives, we can at least begin to prioritize what would be the first item of all those actions that we are creating, and begin to prioritize those actions, because it has taken, I don't know how many hundreds of years to be where we are today. And I don't believe any one of us is to believe that these transformations can happen overnight, a week, or a month. Because when I invoke my true I seeing, when I look at an objective, I have to see it from the beginning. I also have to identify the challenges that I will be facing in pursuing this, and always be prepared when these challenges are confronted. Because if we don't anticipate for those challenges, we can very easily get discouraged and derailed. So by again coming forth proud and determined that this is who we are and this is what we have to offer, I don't believe we need to wait for anyone's permission to pursue those at any point. But the onus is on us now. Look at all those wonderful people that like Dr. Tremblay, all those people that have got themselves, committed themselves, have educated themselves in the Eric-centric system. And in so doing, they never felt that they were compromising any part of themselves, but they always managed to maintain and to retain their own identities into the system, realizing, of course, this is a knowledge that will be required for everyone, so that they can adequately sustain themselves. Because whether we like it or not, we have to agree and admit that we could never go back to where we were. We could never be hunters and gatherers again. And in order for us to be able to be sustained and sustain ourselves, we have to now enter into another wage economy. And that wage economy, I believe, is going to be heavily based on more extraction, more using the precious gifts from our Mother Earth. And I believe with the population base we have currently, I believe it's approximately 35 million here in Canada. We still have, I believe, some land left in which those knowledge transfer can happen. That should lead us then to a point where in the process of revitalizing our languages, before we commit ourselves on hand of how it will be revitalized, we have to make sure then that these ones that need it are going to be grounded and knowledgeable about the natural world. So land-based training, in my humble opinion, it's going to be just an essential component as to revitalization of the language itself. Because I cannot see the separation between the two. Because I was taught, and I truly believe, that my language comes from the land. And we know the diversity of this land. That's why we have so many different languages and so many different cultures and identities across this country. So if you are wondering where is, and this is to me, it's all about two-eye seeing. Because two-eye seeing is not only, you're not only seeking or looking at something from your eye, but the action that will come from that has to be such that you should have the prerogative to take the best, in this case, take the best from the Eric-centric system and the best that has been left there for you by your ancestors, and use these best ways of knowing together to give you an edge and a better opportunities, not only to exercise your inherent responsibilities, but also to create the kind of a character that you will need. So not only that you will be able to sustain yourself, your family, and your community, but also to the nation. So I don't think then and now it wasn't meant for us to think I am just from Eskegonawagi, small area in Quebec. But since this wonderful creation of ours, which was understood to be our home, and no matter where one chooses to live, those exercises, I believe, those responsibilities, I believe, should not only be encouraged, but to be enforced, that each and every one of us has to be committed that every action that we take individually and collectively has to be in harmony. And we also have the responsibility to remind others if they have somehow forgotten what their responsibilities are, to ensure that they go back to where they're supposed to be. Because in my language, knowledge is not only essential, but knowledge is Ukchijitawan. And of course, education is Kinamadnawi. So, but the education system, the question I'm asking is, why can't it be twofold? Why can't, because again, this generation and generations forward will have to use that knowledge that they get from the Eurocentric system so that they can adequately sustain themselves. But yet, for some reason, the other part of the knowledge was exempt or was left behind. And that knowledge was what our ancestors has somehow managed and was successful of coexisting in this complex system called Mother Earth, without them ever once compromising the ecological integrity of the area. And they always made a concerted effort that their actions will translate for the betterment of the future. So these are the simple things, I believe, that should make sense to anyone that really listens. And talking about education again, I believe what has been denied from us for a long period of time was to transfer the knowledge that has been left there for us by our ancestors, and to transfer those knowledge to those young minds, to begin to prepare them that when they take over, when they come to a certain point in their lives, that they will have to do those things. They will be just as well grounded as we were, because our ancestors made sure that the gifts that we will need to coexist in this complex system were all there for us to use and to ask whenever it's needed. So again, Tuaisin, I think, is something that has not only guided this generation here, but guided the previous generations as to how to coexist, how to live in harmony, how to live in balance with your wonderful world, as well try to live in harmony and with the rest of our humanity. This is something I believe that will only come about, just like what our ancestors have somehow managed to sustain themselves with, by using and depending on love and compassion for all life. And that love and compassion, I believe, will prevail. I believe we can see evidence of that today, in which the revitalization is such vast now that we just don't know where to start. But I believe that's the result of embracing this wonderful gift called love and compassion. Because with love and compassion, I believe nothing is impossible. Because that love and compassion is going to be heavily guided by our spirits from our ancestors, spirits from our relatives, spirits from our Creator, and so on. So these are the things that I believe can and should be part and parcel of how we go about preparing the next generation, not only to carry on, but also to be able to improve what we share with them, so that they will be able, not only be able to sustain themselves, but to excel, that they also will be just as ready and prepared are preparing their next 7 generations to carry on what is needed for this world to function in a balanced and harmonious way. So I believe the time is now. I don't think we have much time to waste. I don't think we have much more time. Yes, we can study some more, but I think the action has to be seen at this point in time. Because again, I honestly and truly believe we have exhausted the carrying capacity of the system. We have exhausted the cleansing capacity of the system. And if that system cannot regenerate itself, and if that system cannot cleanse itself, I believe we're in trouble. But I believe if we put our heads together and our words together and our hearts together, I'm sure our Mother Earth will respond in a good way and not only help us, but also help herself to heal and to cleanse herself. So these are the things I believe that has to become part and parcel of not just educating, but preparing our next generations to be the best that they could ever be for something that someone has made some sacrifices to ensure that these opportunities are there for them. And we take in turn will be able to pass them on for their next generations. Because 7 generations, yes, we realize 7 generations is forever from human scale. Because somehow we understand 1 generation is 125 years for us. And the reason why is that that's the length of time in which a living memory can exist. So 840 years, I realize, is forever. But when it comes to our natural world, I think it's only a split second of a second. So if this is our objective then I believe we will rest assured that we did the best everything we could to exercise and to live out our inherent responsibilities, to not only to prepare ourselves as to how can we sustain ourselves, but also prepare the next seven generations, not only to carry on, but to give them the kind of a guidance that they will need for them to meet the challenges, because the challenges are going to be different than ours, and ours are different than what our ancestors are. But if we are grounded of who we are as Aboriginal people, I think we will be given the gifts and the strength and the resilience that we will need to carry on, because we're abiding by not only we're abiding by our teaching, but the messages that have been left there for us from our spiritual realm, it will guide us to be able to do those things, even though they might seem impossible. You know, historically, I believe that should give us some encouragement. I don't know. I don't think. Maybe some people know how many lives have been lost since contact. I do know here in our territory, our population dwindled down to 1,600 after all those atrocities, especially the smallpox, and following the First World War. We lost a lot of our people, but somehow we came up from that 1,500 to what we have today. So to me, that is an indicator that if we constantly and consistently use the spiritual realm as our guide, as our protector, as our knowledge navigator, I believe we will never be able to we'll never be able to go wrong. We can talk about the discrepancies in the education system. I think we all know what those what I would like to share with you, of course, is that how can we together, no matter where you may be in this beautiful land called Turtle Island, how expedient would it be if we can somehow come together and agree on an objective, and not only focus on that objective, but actually put that objective into action to begin this process of revitalization and renewal. Because we have, I believe, to our silences, to our denials, we have allowed others to compromise the very essence of life, not just for us, but for every living thing. And I don't believe we have the luxury anymore of enjoying that indifference or silences. That the time has come now in which we will use every energy, everything that we have, of ensuring that this wonderful creation of ours will be there for the next 7 generations, and hopefully better than the ones than what it was when we came upon. So education to me is a wonderful way of creating a person to be the best that they could ever be. But we also need for those things to be included into our current system. And I think we now have a know-how. We now have enough people educated across this country to begin to craft the kind of a lesson plan or a curriculum that would be required of not only adhering to, but enhancing some of those teachings from our ancestors. And those teachings will then be totally integrated into the mainstream system. Only then, I believe, we can then rest assured that we did everything in our power to ensure that my purpose here was fulfilled as it was intended. Thank you. Oh boy, that's dry.
Miigwech. Yeah, you stop when you get thirsty. That's
Good. You know, reflections would be wonderful here and there, because this is only I have to apologize. I only know this much of who I am as a Mi'kmaq person. But I tried my best to be the conduit that I was meant to be for those wonderful knowledges and gifts that were left for me here by my ancestors. I'm constantly forever grateful for the people that the Creator has put in my pathway, in which I could learn from them. And here I am again. I don't know what the number here is. Again, that number keeps growing, in which I could expand not only my knowledge, but my responsibilities as well. Not as an Aboriginal person, but a person living under this beautiful bag of this Turtle Island.
Miigwech. Thank you for that. So we have 2 more amazing speakers, and just want to thank you. And the Carola Knockwood and Nadine Lefort will speak next, but we'll have Carola speak first. She's Executive Director of the Big Boss Services, Nova Scotia Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. She has a Bachelor of Science in Biology, and followed by a Bachelor of Education, and taught several grades at the Member 2 school. And it's a pleasure to introduce her to talk a little bit about applying Indigenous sciences in the classroom. And I've heard a lot of people say that everything in the Indigenous language is science. So I'll turn it over to Carola.
Walalio, Nindelawisi, Agala Owajueli Digay. My English name is Carola Knockwood. I'm originally from the Siginictuk territory here in New Brunswick, and eventually found my way here to Unamagi and currently living in Member 2 First Nation. And I'm, very humbled to be here. And very touched by what I've heard you say, Elder Albert, as well as some of the comments in the introduction. And what I want to say before I begin, my presentation and some of the work that's been happening in Mi'kmaq Services Branch and at the Department of Education, and our work with all the regional centers of education, is I wanted to, honor the wisdom of our ancestors, the wisdom of our elders. When Albert talks about it's time for action. And one of the things that I say, and I continue to pray in ceremony, is that the work that I do will continue to be guided by our ancestors and our elders, because I know that this work is for our kids. And I just want to thank, Dr. Paulette Tremblay for talking about why we're here. We're here, part of our work and work that we do in the name for our kids is around finding ourselves, coming back to who we are, or who I am and who do I belong to. So this is what I carry in my heart and in the work that I do. So I'm hoping I can easily transition to screen sharing here. Can people see that? Okay, good. I see a thumbs up. So first, I want to acknowledge Amkugamkewe. And Amkugamkewe is a duty, a responsibility, and a promise to care for Utsitkamu, our mother. It's a duty and a responsibility and a promise to care for all my relations, but also how they take care of us. It's together we look after all of creation while remaining true to the sacredness of life as we are governed by sacred teachings. So here in Mi'kma'ki, we have our peace and friendship treaties, which were signed in the 1700s. But our peace and friendship treaties talk about our commitment to each other and the relationships that we have nation to nation, but as well as our relations in a broader scale. And if you look at the map, you can see all around the map all the different relations that exist within Mi'kma'ki and all the different animals and species and plants. So I wanted to honor that. So I want to begin with this quote, and it's really about imagining. It's about vision, right? And so imagine if the spirit of the child is at the heart of learning at all times. And as Indigenous people, we honor and teach the sacred gifts of life that guide us in our learning, as these are our authentic Mi'kmaq ways of being and knowing. It is our job to nurture the gifts and talents of our children and youth. Our Mi'kmaq ancestors have always encouraged that. They speak through our elders to teach us that from this earth we have sprouted. Our knowledge was disclosed and shared with a specific purpose for teaching the individual to live in harmony with Usitkamu, with Mother Earth, and how to behave as a sacred being, living amongst other sacred beings. These understandings are found in the teachings of Nedigulimk, which we have specifically chosen to guide the work that we're doing here around equity, curriculum development, pedagogy, independently and authentically ours. These are the ideas that we're growing here in Mi'kma'ki, also known as Nova Scotia. The late Elder Merdina Marshall also had a vision, a visionary dream, and that was transforming science education. So I wanted to honor her in this moment. And what about the vision of our elders? What do our elders say? And I've heard this time and time again in many different ways. And it is our responsibility as adults in this system to ensure that our kids know who they are, where they're going, where they come from, and what their purpose is. It's about my sense of place, emergence, and participation. But it's also about belonging, meaning, purpose, and hope. And I want to highlight belonging, because belonging is a direct result of our emotional well-being. And it's expressed through our connectedness to relationships with our family, our community, our environment. You know, as Indigenous people, we know that our family extends beyond blood. It includes our clan. And our language tells us we are related to all beings of creation. Our sense of belonging also comes from our community stories about who we are as a people. When we started our work here at the Department of Education and in working with regions, we were very intentional in ensuring that this work was elder and knowledge, and that elders and knowledge keepers were an essential part of it. So for the rest of the presentation, what I will be really talking about is how the Mi'kmaq education model and using Etuaptmumk as a guiding principle, and how well-being and that sense of place, emergence, and participation are key understandings and key things that we need to weave in when we do this work. So our story, you know, what we do and how we do our work is guided by Etuaptmumk and two-eyed seeing. And so, you know, I'm very fortunate to have worked with Albert as a student when I went to CBU, and even more fortunate that I can continue to work with him in this work. And so, you know, you look at this icon and we're used to looking at it and seeing two puzzle pieces. We're also used to looking at it and seeing two eyes. And we talk about this icon in a way in which it represents both knowledge systems, you know, the best of Indigenous knowledge systems and the best of Western knowledge, and how we bring those together in a way that enriches our understanding, how it enriches both of our knowledge systems. Our story, it's Nedigulimk guided. So if you take a closer look at this model, the center of it is Nedigulimk guided. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And our story, Mi'kmaq sense of place, emergence, participation. It was Merdina Marshall, the late Merdina Marshall, who brought forward this understanding of sense of place, emergence, participation, and how love, language, life, and land are so interdependent and interconnected within learning. And so that's an important piece as well to include in the work that we're doing. And I come back to this statement. Indigenous education needs to help our youth understand who they are, where they come from, and how to speak their ancestors' language. And that comes directly from, Elder Albert Marshall during one of his workshops. I keep moving around my little screen here. I'm trying to get rid of the this little chat box, but excuse me for having to pause. So Etuaptmumk, in terms of guiding the work that we're doing here at the department, and one of the things that we talk about, that it is a co-learning journey, because we're learning to see from the strengths of Mi'kmaq ways of being and knowing, and we're learning to see from the other eye, and those strengths from Western science and ways of knowing. But most importantly, to co-learn, to see from both of these eyes for the benefit of all. But how does that look like? Before I talk about how we use Etuaptmumk as a guiding principle, one of the things that we connect and talk about as well is that, each participant, their mind, their heart, and their body and their spirit, it speaks to our 4 aspects of humanness. It requires all of us for that ongoing commitment to the relationships that we're going to create when we work together. So it requires acting with respect upon responsibilities, reciprocities, and accountabilities. So here at the Department of Education, one of our goals is to begin to grow that understanding of Etuaptmumk within the department, within the system, within the regions, and with teachers, and also to begin to grow, begin to use Etuaptmumk as a guiding principle. So in the past 3 years, this is the work that we've done, and I'm jumping ahead because I didn't mean to spend so much time at the beginning, but really, if we look at the core of this Mi'kmaq model, is at the beginning, at the center of this is love. The Iksalsudi, that's the first sacred gift, and that was to teaching, one of the teachings that Elder Dr. Medina Marshall brought forward. And so, in working with education, it is the child who is at the center of any work that we do, and we always have to remind ourselves that this work is for our kids. So the first sacred gift, Iksalsudi. So if we expand out of that, is the 4 aspects of humanness, which is a teaching that came from Elder Jane Meader when she talks about Mi'kmaq ways of being and knowing. But we have 4 aspects. It's cognitional, physical, emotional, and spiritual. It's all of those 4 together. And that's important because it leads to a teaching of this idea of a whole, being holistic. And it also talks about balance, which I'll talk a little bit more about after. And you expand out, and it's those 4 core values of respect, relationship, responsibility, and reciprocity. And I was so lucky when I worked at Mi'kmaq Madnawe that I had the opportunity to meet with elders, and they shared with me their stories. And it was then that I realized in their sharing of stories, those stories were always rooted and grounded in respect, in relationship, in responsibility. What is our responsibility, and reciprocity? But it wasn't just those values, but it was our interactions as well, and how we are interconnected. And so it was about the the person, the individual, but how they're connected and how they interact with family, community, and environment. And it was that moment during that time when I sat with the elders is I started to understand the depth of our knowledge. But I also started to understand what we needed to do in our education system so that it would grow our young people in the ways in which our ancestors and elders have envisioned. And so this is what we started to do with teachers. It was growing those essential understandings. This was the beginning of our work. This was the beginning of our journey together. And so Nedigolimk guided and Mi'kmaq centered. So Etuaptmumk in action. One of the things, so there are several things that we are doing here at the department, and certainly one of them, and so it's Etuaptmumk in action. So we have an equity in action project, bringing forward Etuaptmumk as a guiding principle, looking at well-being and developing a holistic understanding of well-being, as well as the development of a high school course. So we're in the process of developing a Nedigolim course. But I wanted to just sit with one example and follow through with that. And so let's look at Etuaptmumk in action when we talk about well-being and towards the development of a holistic and inclusive understanding of well-being. Because if we look to the wisdom of our elders and our ancestors, what they say is, in order for us to be well, we need to always look after our 4 aspects of being. So that's our cognitional, our physical, emotional, and our spiritual. When we talk about balance and that and the importance of balancing those 4 aspects, that moves us towards our understanding of well-being. So it was really important to engage the system around well-being and what our elders are saying. And so, if you look to your left, here is a holistic understanding, an Indigenous understanding of well-being, where spirituality is at the center. And if you expand out, it's that love and that belonging and those relationships that we talk about. And we expand out even further, it's the shelter, the safety, the food, water, security. And then self-actualization, that role, service, esteem, and identity. So this is a model that Cross created. He created it in reinterpreting Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's also a model that Cindy Blackstock uses in her work. But I wanted to bring this forward as an illustration of, here are 2 different ways to look at well-being: an Indigenous understanding, and here is a Western understanding of well-being, a part of it. It's not the whole story. But when we use Etuaptmumk as a guiding principle, then we look to the strengths and differences of what our knowledge system is saying about well-being. We look to the strengths of what the Western system is saying around our understanding of well-being. But it's in these exchange of stories that we can come to an inclusive and holistic understanding of well-being, where our kids, our Mi'kmaq, our Indigenous kids, will see themselves. I'm just checking for time. So I'm just gonna continue ahead. And so coming back to this and this growing of well-being, it comes back to feeding into this question about who am I and where am I going and where do I come from and what is my purpose? So what about Etuaptmumk in action when it comes to the development of a Nidugulum course? And so we've had a lot of co-learning here. So we talk about Etuaptmumk as a co-learning journey, that it needs to be collaborative and ongoing. And so if we look at the development of this Nidugulum course, certainly all of those pieces have been a key part of our journey together. And so in the development of this course, when we started to use Etuaptmumk as a guiding principle, what we also recognized was that in checking in with the curriculum team is that they also needed some help and support. And so we developed this template as a way for them to be able to keep together our knowledge, our Mi'kmaq knowledge system, because we are here in Nova Scotia and Western science, and how we can work with both of these knowledge systems together to create a course. I also, for those of you who are, in the group and looking for more examples around, knowledge systems there and Western science and Indigenous, I encourage you to look at the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, because they have a really great visual that also speaks to how to bring science, how to use but how we can bring both knowledge systems together in science curriculum. So I want to focus on this because this is a key part in understanding some of the differences when we talk about science education. So Murdina Marshall, if you look to the late Murdina Marshall, if you look to the left, she brought forward this concentric circles model. And I just want everyone to look at the other side and the Western knowledge system. And so when we look at knowledges and when we compare both, if we look to the Western side, that science, that knowledge system is more concerned about the physical knowledge. And that knowledge is expressed in that language of mathematics. If we look to the Mi'kmaq knowledge side, it's interconnective, it's interdependent, it's holistic. And so the physical knowledge is important, but so is our personal connection. So is our respect for living and non-living beings and the sacredness. And that collective. And so Murdina would talk about, that love, language, life and land, those are important parts of Indigenous knowledge. But I also want people to to take a look at the diagrams. Here we have a person, the Mi'kmaq side, and that person is within the language. It's within the knowledge. They're in there and part of it. Where in Western science, there is a tendency for that detachment to step outside of what you're learning and to see it from afar. So that's an important distinction. And so when we start to work on bringing our science stories together, that we need to understand that this is one difference, a very important difference. A common ground between our knowledge systems is observations and patterns. And so, that's the strength that we can build upon when we create science, when we look at science curriculum, observations and patterns. And I want to end with this, because this work is ongoing. We continue to work towards the development of this Nidugulum course. It's been a co-learning journey for the curriculum writing team. It's been a co-learning journey for the directors. It's been a co-learning journey for the leaders in the system. And we recognize that there will be challenges. We recognize that also our commitment to to this relationship that we're creating. So what's important is, as we move towards this work, is honoring our elders' wishes and these guiding words. Is it authentic? Is it accurate? And is it sacred? And so when we ask ourselves these questions, when we say, is it authentic? Have we included that Indigenous voice? And if we were to show them our work and they read it, and if they said, oh, no, this doesn't represent me, then it's not authentic. We have to go back and we have to start again. But it's this guiding words that will help us and continue to help us in the work that we do. Is it authentic? Is it accurate? And is it sacred? And I wanted to, and I just want to quickly talk about a sense of place, emergence, participation. And, what did Dr. Merdina Marshall mean when she spoke about sense of place, emergence, and participation? To belong to a place means there's a feeling, a physical, emotional, and spiritual connection to a location. For the Mi'kmaq people, Mi'kma'ki is where our sense of belonging lives. This sense of belonging is deeply rooted from the land, the language, stories, and our lived experiences. It is through the gifts from our ancestors and the Mi'kmaq and their strong understanding of place, which they have passed down from generation to generation. It is captured in the beautiful words of Wujiskaliadig, from this earth we have sprouted. It is through living and life and our continual interaction, which you can see here, our continual interaction with the universe and creation, that we, Ginu, begin to grow our understanding of sense of place, emergence, participation. It is the wisdom of our elders. It is that help us emerge, and understand who we are, where we come from, our language, and those intergenerational teachings. It is a responsibility of each of us to participate in all that surrounds us. It is the conversations that we have with elders and knowledge keepers. It's the ceremonies. It's all these interactions that will help provide that enriched and sacred experiences that are important aspects of Mi'kmaq ways of being and knowing. And participation. Participating is essential to our own development because it is the learning experiences that feed our heart, our mind, our spirit, and our body. It is through this participation that we begin to grow and learn. And so I think, what Merdina was saying when she talked about this cycle is really a concept of learning that the Mi'kmaq have used since time immemorial. And I'm going to I'll stop right there. So a key part of this work in the development of the Nedugulimk High School course is also about partnerships. And, we have partnered up with UINR, and Nadine Lefort is here, and she'll speak a little bit more about that. But it's about partnerships. And, UINR has partnered with us in the co-creation of professional learning, because we understand that what we're bringing forward is something new for the system. And it's something new that will require a lot of support in the public school system. We also recognize that we also are looking to our partners to create resources. So Mi'kmaq created resources, and UINR is one of our partners in doing that. So I'll leave it and invite Nadine to speak to more to our partnership and some of her work as well.
Well then, Carola. Let me just organize a few things. Hi, everyone. My name is Nadine Lefort. I am of settler ancestry. I'm French, Acadian from Unama'ki. I grew up here and I've lived in many places, but I've moved back and I'm settled here for a long time now. Yeah, I grew up in Unama'ki in Mi'kmaq territory, and I'm happy to be raising my sons here as well. I work with Unama'ki Institute of Natural Resources. I'm communication and outreach manager. My background is in ecology and then environmental education. And I have my experience, well, Carola mentioned working with Albert and Merdina and Dr. Cheryl Bartlett 20 years ago. So I was working here when she was a student as well, and just after I finished my undergraduate degree. So it's been really lovely to bring these ways of knowing together, again, be working together. And Albert and I see each other 2 or 3 times a week. So, but never tiring of one another, right, Albert? Unama'ki Institute of Natural Resources is an environmental NGO that is responsible for aquatic research, natural resource management in Unama'ki. So we really look at traditional Mi'kmaq knowledge, working side by side with Western science. We look at species management, conserved and protected areas, water quality, monitoring, and environmental partnerships, all which are guided by Etuaptmumk, which Carola talked a little bit about. And UINR is our acronym, represents the 5 Mi'kmaq communities in Unama'ki in Cape Breton, Eskazoni, Membertu, Bodladek, Wagmakuk, and Wegoma. And we work on all kinds of natural resource issues. And our 3, I want to set this up so that you understand kind of who we are, and then why it's important for us to be partnering with Department of Education Mi'kmaq Services branch, and how we have very similar goals. So our 3 goals, UINR's 3 goals. The first is governance. So we aim to provide resources for Mi'kmaq equal partnership in natural resource management in Unama'ki and in its traditional territory, which extends beyond Unama'ki. Mi'kmaq territory extends beyond. And so we work with other organizations outside of Unama'ki to cover the rest of the territory. Our second goal is two-eyed seeing. So we aim to strengthen Mi'kmaq research and natural resource management while maintaining our traditions and worldviews. So maintaining Mi'kmaq traditions and worldviews. Our third goal is partnerships. So we aim to partner with other groups sharing the same desire to protect and preserve our resources for future generations. And so in this is our UINR's 24th year. We'll be heading into our 25th year soon. And so we have an idea of what is really effective and what are the things that are standing in our way. And over the last 10 years, one of my main projects has been working to develop a summer program. Similar, I'll send the website for UINR. I just saw that message pop up. I'll send that and a few other links at the end of the presentation. Excuse me. So one of the projects that I've been responsible for is a summer camp or a summer program called Niganiautigan. So Niganiautigan means blazing a new trail or starting a new path. And I thought I would show you a quick little video about Niganiautigan and then talk about the things that we have learned through that is really leading us to all of the land-based learning and Indigenous-led conservation that's happening right now.
Being Mi'kmaq is an important part of who I am. Nigani Autigan helped me to nourish this part of myself, and now I feel confident to learn about anything.
Nigani Autigan is an annual 8-day-long summer camp for Mi'kmaq youth that focuses on gaining skills and understanding of natural resource management and traditional Mi'kmaq knowledge.
Camp made me stronger as a Mi'kmaq person.
How we think and like our past and our present and what we could do about the future.
Our elders express concern that if our youth don't understand their relationship and responsibility to the natural world, then our culture and way of life will suffer.
Helped me connect with the land and my culture and what my ancestors had to do for food and medicine and how to pick it.
We developed Nigani Autigan, a camp that highlights traditional knowledge, provides skills in natural resource management, and helps create a path for careers for Mi'kmaq youth.
It felt really good. That's the only place I feel like I could be myself for being native and doing native stuff.
Don't be afraid to say who you are or to know what you are. Encourage others to be yourself.
With the help of our community partners and traditional knowledge holders, we teach science and traditional knowledge together and help to grow community leaders in two-eyed seeing and sustainability.
People stepping outside their comfort zone and kind of giving themselves the opportunity to grow and learn.
It was just fun. Probably the best part about it.
We look forward to seeing you at the next Nigani Autigan camp. There's no telling where the path will lead you.
So this program, Nigani Autigan, we're in our 11th year this year. And when we started the program, we started it because many of the organizations around here came to us saying there are no Mi'kmaq students coming out of university with a science background that we can hire for DFO or Department of Environment or to work in the science field. So that's what prompted this program development. But then over the last 10 years, we've really noticed that what really brings these youth alive and what really brings the program to life is helping, what did Albert say? Yeah, we changed from a job-oriented or career-oriented goal to helping these young people to be complete people. So that's one thing that you mentioned, Albert, and also Carola sort of ties into the sense of place, emergence, and participation. So enabling these young people to recognize who they are, to draw deeper, to dig deeper into those roots, to allow them to go on. And so that program has been going on for over 10 years now. And within the last 2 years, Carola and I have been talking about developing some kind of similar program for younger learners. And so last summer we had our first summer camp for youth. They were in grades 3 to 6. Yeah, 3 to 6. And we called the camp Learning with Usikamu. Learning with the land. It was meant to, follow the land-based learning policies and protocols that are, or all the guidelines that are out there, but we really want to make it that we're not simply learning on the land, we are learning with. It's an ongoing reciprocal relationship. And so we partnered with the literacy branch to work with youth who maybe needed some assistance with literacy or foster that love of learning, the passion for learning, and also develop ecological and cultural literacy as well. And so for 2 weeks, we had the same group of students, I think we had 13 youth. And so we had the same group of students and we worked just outside of Membertou First Nation. And we worked with knowledge holders, elders, storytellers, And so we did lots of, and it was summer camp too. So it was just a lot of fun. And I thought I would show you some photos from that as well. So the camp was learning with Uksikamu. So this is us. This is on our first day. We had chosen one spot in the forest. This is an urban trail. It's really kind of downtown Sydney, next to Membertou. And we chose with this one spot deep in the forest by a little brook, and that was our kind of our home base. And the children decorated it and made it their own. And then we would always meet at the center. You know, we had an indoor space where we could drop some things. And then we would walk into this space, gather there, and talk about what we were going to do for the day. I'll just show you a few more. And we had a basket with tobacco. And so every day when we walked into the forest, the children would offer tobacco, and we had this lovely basket made by a Mi'kmaq basket maker, Frank Muse from Bear River. And they were really proud to carry it and really proud to explain it to any guests we had. So they would, after the first day, they would explain what we were doing. They would offer tobacco as we walked in, or at any special point in the day, they would offer tobacco. And we would move around within that set of trails. This is our home base. This is us reading stories. And this was on the first day. We found this guy found a garter snake, and he was so excited. And he was really proud to know how to hold a snake, but in the end it bit him. And then he said, actually, I feel kind of honored to have been bitten by this snake. And he just made it his own and was really proud. There's a slug. This is a rainy day. We were outside, rain or shine. This is Elder Danny Paul from Membertou First Nation. He came into the woods on our rainy day, and I think this is him offering tobacco, but he walked with the youth, talked to them about anything he saw, and I think he was giving piggyback rides that afternoon or that morning. This is another of our youth carrying the basket. This was a day that they worked with I think UINR Species at Risk crew. They were surveying for bumblebees because we have several bumblebees that are at species at risk. And so they were surveying, the youth were surveying it, capturing whatever bees they could capture and adding it to UINR's collection or data. I don't think they were keeping the species specimens from that day. Oh, there's one. And this was one of our coordinators. And that's my son, and he was very helpful throughout the week. And so Gullo, the counselor, gifted my son Leo with an eagle feather, which they were both so proud to be able to do. On the last day, they made bundles. So they gathered some medicines from the forest, and then we also added some tobacco and cedar and sweetgrass. And they made their little bundles. They were very proud of them. There's a little photo of all the bundles. And then on our last day, there's Carola. And in the middle is our executive director, Lisa Young. And on the left is the director of education. And on the last day of camp, they joined us and got to join in the day's fun.
So I'm just going to jump in and say that was the Minister of Education.
Oh, sorry. Did I say something different?
Yeah.
Sorry. Absolutely. So that was a lot of fun, the camp last year, and we are aiming to, that was in partnership. So UINR offered this because we have experience offering outdoor education, outdoor camps, outdoor programming. And for us, the goal is to foster Etuaptmumk as a way of learning. And in encouraging these young people to understand how to see the world through different ways of viewing. So through a traditional Indigenous way of seeing the world and taking from scientific ways of knowing, it's giving these young people a way, it's allowing these young people to see how they can engage with the world. And so we will be continuing with this summer, and we'll do it in member 2 again, and then take it to another community as well. We're planning to take it to Etuaptmumk. And then hopefully we'll work toward it being offered throughout Mi'kma'ki, but particularly throughout Nova Scotia, since we're working with the Nova Scotia Department of Education. And Carola and I were talking about this because we can see that young people really need this support, but in schools, we want educators to also be able to provide this support. Educators and anybody working within education, administrators working within the Department of Education, particularly Mi'kmaq Services Branch. And so we wanted to work toward offering some professional development opportunities for educators, and started developing, again, learning with Uksikamu or reconnecting with Uksikamu opportunities. And so we offered a workshop in the fall, in November, in Waigoma First Nation. And it was a 2-day event. We were outdoors a lot of the time. We had some rain, and we didn't want the elders who we invited, we didn't want to bring them outside, but we did have some nice time outside. And then we also offered another workshop just a few weeks ago at a retreat center not far from Halifax called Windhorse Farm. Oh, it has a new name, a new Mi'kmaq name now, but I don't know it. So both sessions, there were 2 days, and they were meant to really allow people the time and space to reconnect with Uksikamu, and then facilitate some activities that would sort of foster these relationships. And before I dive into those photos, Carola, would you like to add anything to the kind of the concepts and the development of those programs?
Yeah, so really what we wanted was to provide, learning opportunities for administrators and teachers around Nedigolimk. And so, that professional learning was to begin to grow those understandings. And the only way that you can do that is if you're outside and if you're doing things. And this is where, our partnership with UINR was, extremely invaluable, in that they had all the connections with knowledge keepers and elders, and the experience to, bring together, to bring this together and to connect us with knowledge keepers and elders in learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and just thinking of both the camps that I mentioned, the Niganiautigan, and also learning with Uksikamu, we were really trying to highlight examples of Nedigolimk in action, just to show people what it can look like, what those values of thinking beyond ourselves and thinking beyond our current generation, and really being able to see ourselves connected with all other beings, and with Uksikamu herself. So one afternoon in Niganiautigan, or one morning, they might have a session with DFO. They might be doing some soil samples at the lakeside. The Brador Lakes is a saltwater lake in the middle of Unama'ki, and unique ecosystem. It's a UNESCO biosphere site. And so they might be doing some samples, or they might do some samples, water samples and species assessments. And then that afternoon, they might work with an elder to make eel spears. They might go into the woods, get some tree trunks, and make eel spears from start to finish that day, and maybe the next day. And then that evening, they would go eel fishing. So we can, or maybe the DFO folks would lead something on eel species at risk status, or, you know, very science-based stuff. And then they see how it all ties together. And then they also see how they can contribute, because often what happens is they'll say, I don't know anything about that. And then once we start showing the traditional activities, they say, oh yeah, I go eel fishing with my uncle all the time. And I know that they do this and this and this. So then the learned understanding and the personal relationship comes out, and that sticks a lot more than some lecture that they get in school about eels, you know. And then with the professional development workshops, we were looking to, Carola mentioned the development of the Knockwood course, and we're excited to be involved sort of as an aside, because we're hoping to develop some resources that can be used within the course. But also we're trying to provide opportunities to witness, again, Knockwood in action, two-eyed seeing in action, in research projects, in community-led initiatives, and also recognizing that it is all of what UINR does, all of our projects, and then all of our outreach initiatives are what our elders have been asking for. And so all of them are guided either by community concerns or community wishes. And, and so we wanted the educators and the education administrators to be able to understand some of these, and also to get their hands in the dirt, in the soil, in the snow, and really experience some of what they've been reading about and are like weaving into the course. We wanted them to be able to connect with it. So I'll show a few photos from those workshops. Oops. So we called the workshops Deepening Roots. I think it was Reconnecting with Uksikamu or Learning with Uksikamu. This is an elder, Stephen Augustine, telling creation story. He was explaining how this was how Albert gave an opening prayer to start us off in a good way. And then Stephen Augustine, he told creation story to explain how from the earth, this earth, we've sprouted. So starting off this workshop, explaining that we are of the earth, we are not beyond it, we are not other, and starting us off in that way. And this is us in the forest just next door. This is Elder Joe Gugu. And this is Skylar Jador, who is an aquatic resource technician and two-eyed seeing specialist with Winnemaki Institute of Natural Resources. He works with us, and he did a session with the participants where they threw a seine net in the water and pulled it in to see what they found. This is the Brador Lakes that I mentioned earlier. And when they pulled it in, so Skylar and another knowledge keeper, Joe Bernard, were discussing, trying to think of the names of these. There were a few tiny little fish. They were trying to think of the names, and they were speaking in Mi'kmaq because they knew the Mi'kmaq names, but they were trying to think of the English names. And one of the participants in their feedback said that moment where Skylar and Joe were discussing these fish in Mi'kmaq, trying to remember the English word, was the most powerful moment of the workshop, because she said she didn't realize that young Mi'kmaq had such a rich connection with the language and connected with the land, like the traditional way of understanding the language. And so that was really lovely feedback for me to hear, just that these educators recognized the significance of those moments. And this was from a few weeks ago. This was a huge sugar maple that we were gathered around telling stories. And some tall trees. This is a really striking forest. It includes quite a lot of old growth trees, which is really hard to come by in Nova Scotia, which has been cleared so many times. This is Joe, two elders, Joe Gugu on the right, who you saw in the forest earlier, and his wife, Judy Sudik Bernard. They were there, and I just loved this photo. I wanted to highlight that we all enjoyed our time. They let us, Sudik took us on a medicine walk through the forest, and Joe, he brought some deer hide that everyone cleaned. He actually hurt himself that weekend, and he couldn't do the work, but he bossed all of us around to get the deer hide cleaned. And we had this beautiful frosty morning. We had a sunrise greeting, and it was really, really beautiful. Oh, this is us in the forest again, and us with a bonfire, and we're cooking loose skin again, so bannock over the fire, and it looks like I'm licking my lips right there. This is one of the participants, and Joe Bernard in the background. He made some cups with twigs and birch bark for everyone around the fire. We had some bidoué, some tea. There's the deer hide. And this was our frosty sunrise greeting. And this is, Carola, this is your photo. And I thought I would end on this one. It was a lovely ceremony that morning. So I wanted to show you some photos and tell you a little bit about some of the programming that is really focusing on getting people on the land, which is what Mi'kmaq elders have been saying for years and years. In all of the programming that we've been working on, really, elders just keep saying, we need to be on the land. We need to be speaking the language. We need to always be tying in the personal relationship and ongoing relationship and interconnectivity, and always include the sacred and the love within the land, or with the land and with the language. And Carola, I'm going to ask you if you would like to add onto that, or maybe talk about some of the other pieces that we are working on together, either with the course or other projects that we have up our sleeve.
Mm-hmm. I guess one thing that I'll speak to really is, in doing this work and in bringing, our knowledge into course development intended for schools. One of the things that was also important is the development of those resources. And I'm going to highlight it again because, it's the thing that we're going to really need to help support teachers when they begin to do this work. And so, one of the most powerful ways to be able to tell stories and to tell our stories is through videos. And so that is a next step for, us to help support, so that this Nedigulim course and the teaching of the course will be successful. So that I think that's all I wanted to say, other than I think, with every professional learning, the things that we want to ensure participants leave with, is growing those initial understandings. And it's around, who I am. So I'm at the center of this learning. It's about understanding that, I have 4 aspects of being, and connecting that to, our 4 core values, and then our interactions. And so the professional learning helps to set up that in a good way. And of course, we're on the land, right? And so Utsitkamug, we're learning with her. And the last thing was also ensuring that we were starting to plant that seed around sense of place, emergence, participation. And we'll be continuing to do that for the next few years, is ensuring that, we're providing 2 or 3, up to 3 professional learning opportunities for anyone who wants to participate.
Well, thank you very much. We have time for a couple of questions. But what I wanted to point out, people were asking about this, and we'll have the video of the entire gathering on our website probably in about a month. We had talked about doing a follow-up session maybe next month. We can talk about your enthusiasm to do one, but I can turn it over to the participants for a couple of questions at this point. So you've got the mechanical hand, or you've got the physical hand, technology, or real life. So I haven't seen a hand come up, but what I was interested in was the link between what you're doing and employment and careers. You also talked about the importance of being human, but as an educator, I'm also interested in. I know young people are driven by, am I going to get a job in this? And you're obviously, there are jobs there, but then I've got Kyle Bobbywash that has a question.
Yeah, sorry, Simon. Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off. I was happy to let you continue, but I did want to ask something, and it came out a little bit in Carola's presentation, and similarly to Nadine, towards the end, we were talking about the model, the education model, and kind of identifying those elements that elders and knowledge holders find are really important. How do we center, or how do you potentially center student learning objectives, right? Because we know that those objectives that students have themselves, or what they see as the future, are probably a lot more accurate for that future job market, or for where they want to bring their own culture and where they want to push cultural identity and practices. How do we incorporate that into some of these models that we're talking about in developing education that is responsive and relevant to community?
Well, I'll jump in, and I'm going to also share the screen, because I think the education model that we're sharing can easily lend itself to the question that you're asking, because regardless of the type of work that we're doing, who's always at the center? It's the student. So whatever work that you're working towards will always come back to and realign us, like to remind us, right? Oh, wait a minute, this work is for the student. We're doing this for the student. What do they need? And so for me, that model has always, and for others on the team, when we're doing this work, has always been able to remind us again, once you start jumping into the work and saying, well, wait a minute, we went this way with this. It's for the students, and what do they need? And because it's centered on that, if we continue to remind ourselves of it, we're always going to make sure that we're bringing something that's relevant for our kids. I hope that answered your question.
Well, I guess maybe my issue is, especially as I get older, right? Just, oh my God, I'm out of touch with people that are 20 years old. When I was in undergrad, I was out of touch with people in high school and elementary. And again, right, where we think these are the best practices, or these are those things that are really important. But unless we have that kind of youth leadership being able to direct some of these learning goals, we're only doing our best approximations of what we think they're going to need by centering them. So these are their needs, and we're going to draft those kind of recommendations. But how do we make sure, how do we validate this? Oh, this is absolutely what the kids want.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because I neglected to talk about a key part, and that's always about reconnecting with family and community, right? And so that's a big part of that model. And so if we go back and reconnect with students, then we know that the work that we're doing is going to be authentic, accurate, and sacred.
Maybe,
yes.
Yeah, I don't want to speak to learning objectives, because that's not what what UINR is working on, but we are very much involved in helping to work with youth to develop, to foster their confidence as well as their understanding of the world and sciences, as well as traditional Mi'kmaq knowledge, which then positions them very well to move on to any careers. That and then what we're hearing is that these Ulnu youth, these Indigenous youth, feel like they can move forward in career opportunities as an Indigenous person, rather than someone who has to push aside the culture to pull in the science to move forward in that. And so what we're hearing from the youth is that when they can actually sink into and really appreciate and deepen their cultural understandings, that they are more capable to move forward and more confident and have more options, more doors opening to them.
Nadine,
Thank you for that.
Nadine,
sorry,
you couldn't have said, Nadine, you couldn't have said it better. Because to me, this is a testament. If you allow our young people to experience of who they are, which they somehow inherently realize that they are very much part and parcel of this wonderful creation. So if they are well grounded of who they are, then there's no question in my mind. It will create an opportunity for them to excel, no matter what profession they may choose. Because this grounding, I think, is essential for us to do for the young people. And I think here is a testament of how can it be done.
Yep. And also I see things changing on the career fronts too, like at UINR and at several institutions and organizations. They're starting to recognize, you know, when they have a job posting, they'll ask for an undergrad degree in conservation or whatever, you know, similar field, and or traditional knowledge, understanding of traditional knowledge. And so that is woven into, so I see jobs and job placements that are starting to highlight the understandings and the depth behind traditional Mi'kmaq knowledge or traditional Indigenous knowledge. So it's not now seen as an extra. If someone speaks their language, it can like completely make them a much stronger candidate than someone who might have several science degrees behind them. So it is, I mean, that's very slow to happen, but I'm starting to see that happen too. And so when people come in recognizing the depth of their understanding and are really proud of it, and then it goes a long way.
Thank you. We have one more question. Patsy, if you're still on.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for that. I just wanted to make a comment and share my gratitude to Elder Albert. I really connected to what you were saying. I'm currently working for the Indigenous Center of Expertise with the Public Service Commission. I am also a student, master's in leadership student at Royal Roads University. I went through my residency and I found that my perspective was challenged in a way that I thought I was watering down my teachings. I was very fortunate that I have the teachings of both my mother, who went to residential school, and my father, who was saved and protected by his grandparents. So I've lived in both of those worlds. So my teachings come from both of those lenses. And when I was faced with that challenge, I felt like I had to take a step back a bit. But as Elder Albert was sharing, I allowed myself to take on the perspective and create a balance in myself. But it took courage. It took a lot of courage to be able to do that because you have to let go a little bit. And I really, really connected to what he was sharing there. So taking that into my place of work, I was able to share a different understanding and find value in the people that I was working with, that I am working with. And it just, I find that I have to recommit many times over to make growth and perspective, to make it real. So I really, really appreciated the conversation and the teachings. Looking forward to more connection with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. So with Albert, Nadine, and Carola's permission, we'll close. We'll turn it over to Dr. Tremblay for some closing words, and then over to Mike Mitchell for the closing prayer.
I just have one amazing word, and that is wow. The three of you, Elder Albert, Carola, Nadine, you blew me away. What you did was create a story that made connections. You know, you went from the elders' wise words, and they were magical. I heard such amazing words, and Elder Albert, I heard things, you know, being Moose Clan, and you're learning and seeing everything from an Aboriginal lens and having to take action and being action oriented. And you have to believe we're reaching the point of a new time where there are going to be changes, and we have to stand up and take action. We have gifts. We have the knowledge to sustain ourselves. We're mindful. We're committed. We're going to coexist in harmony with other relatives. We're going to come together. We're going to create collaborative concepts, and there's going to be a transformation, and it's going to take a long time. It took us a long time to get into this mess. It's going to take us a while to get out of it. So your words were magic. And then we had the vision of the teaching in the classroom from Carola. Oh my gosh, Carola, you're doing magnificent work. We want to partner. We want to know how we can help with that, because you have great models that have the in-depth understanding that people are missing. People are missing steps. They don't know how to do that. And so you help them in the learning environment do that. And so that was magical. And then brought together by Nadine, we're on the land. We're outside, we're at place. And all of that place is so important. That's what we do. We do the place stuff. We can work with education administrators, and that's why they keep coming back to us and hold us up. So all I want to say is, what a magnificent day, lesson in learning, and how you've connected it all to make it holistic and to make it sustainable and doable. And I really appreciate that. You moved me big time. So I learned so much today. I want to say Nyawagoa.
You know, I see Maureen Johns, who's on our board, waving her hand. So I want to have the last word before Mike.
Maybe I was swatting at a fly or something there, because I didn't realize my hands were waving. But what a profound experience. Every single drop in the bucket of knowledge is going to help us to overflow to make a positive difference. And I feel so personally grounded. Elder Albert, thank you so much. I was struggling a little bit today. And when you talked about our sacred gifts that we're born with, you reminded me of that. So thank you. And thank you to FNEAA and to all the participants that support shared learning like this, because it's only together and sharing our knowledge that we're going to make a positive difference. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we'll turn it over to Mike Mitchell for our closing.
I want to congratulate everyone for participating and contributing your thoughts, your ideas, your work. We're going to have to work with one another. All our elders, traditional knowledge keepers, and elders of our communities. It is true, the stories, languages, in Indigenous languages, that's going to lead to the survival of knowledge of our own traditions. We've spent, or Canada has, as well as the United States, a century and a half of trying to take away everything related to our culture, take away our knowledge of our ceremonies. In Canada, they said they had 3 purposes or objectives to take away who we were as a people, Indigenous people, and make us productive citizens of Canada. Well, here we are. There's still a few pieces left of knowledge that's related to our culture. But the most important thing that we have left is pride in who we are, appreciation of the teachings of our ancestors, and that we're picking up the pieces and putting it back together. We're going to need you as educators to be mindful how important it is that our languages, ceremonies, appreciation of culture survives. And we need to incorporate those teachings into our schools, even in your churches, that our traditional ways, culture, beliefs are not to be put down, but to be embraced, incorporated into the culture that we live today. And so we offer these words of appreciation and thanks to all of you. And we also give our thanks to all of creation, to the land, to the water, to the air, to the heavens, and to all our families. May you all be strong, continue to pick up the strength from working or doing the work you do, but work with your elders and be proud of who you are. And those are my words on top to put an end to the meeting we had. Very successful, and I congratulate everyone for their participation, for their wisdom, and I want to thank our organization for putting this together. It is very important for all of us to see and prepare for our youth, for our communities, for our nation. And so today, our meeting is now concluded, and I turn it back over to Simon Prakupi. I got it now. Now,
no, I might. So thanks everybody for participating. Just a reminder that our conference is coming up in November, and we'll be sending out some notices fairly soon, probably early April. But it'll be based on this idea of Indigenous science, technology, education, and mathematics and arts. So we're looking forward to seeing you all there. And we'll be following up soon following this gathering. So have a good day, Bigwitch. Thank you. And thanks to Dr. Kathy Martin for organizing this event. She was instrumental in getting everybody together. Thank you.